Hello everyone! I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I want to talk to y'all about my relationship with coffee, especially Bones Coffee Company. First off, this is not a sponsored video. I just happen to really like Bones Coffee. I post about them a lot on my personal Instagram. I have done some partnership content with Bones Coffee, but unfortunately this video is not one of them. So just want to get that disclaimer out of the way. So in particular, I wanted to talk about my personal relationship with coffee, why I am such a big fan of Bones Coffee, and how coffee is just so incredibly important to the writing community. So first things first, why Bones Coffee? So I originally, when I first started drinking coffee on a regular basis, I was drinking Starbucks coffee. And a big part of that was because I went to high school in the early 2000s. And one of the biggest things that most people my age did during then was stop off at Starbucks before heading to school. And I was no different from that. My mom would take me and my best friend at the time to Starbucks before school and then drop us off at school, and we would be all kinds of sugared up and caffeined up for the remainder of the day. Because when I first started drinking coffee, it was barely coffee. It was just a whole lot of whipped cream and sugar and flavors and all that kind of stuff. And the older I got, the more I moved away from those types of really overly sugared coffee drinks, and I started moving more toward drinking lattes and macchiatos where you could actually taste the coffee. And then into my modeling days, I depended on coffee to the point that it was dangerous. And I actually now have a heart condition because I effectively replaced sleep with coffee. I would stay up from 1 to 3 days at a time, drink coffee whenever I felt tired. So I drank about 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day. I know that doesn't sound like a lot because there are some people that drink like upwards 10 cups of coffee a day, which is bad for you. Don't do that. But when you don't sleep and you drink 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day and you already have an underlying heart condition, it's not a good plan. And now I have permanent damage to my heart because of just basically ODing on caffeine for years and years and years and just destroying myself. And so I had to pull back on how much coffee I drank. And then also, once I retired from modeling, I also really had to get my finances together. I couldn't be spending that amount of money going to Starbucks and getting fancy coffee drinks every single day. So that's when I bought a Keurig and switched to doing Keurig coffee. And then I learned that K-Cups are terrible for the environment because I was specifically getting Starbucks K-Cups. And so then I switched to using a reusable little like K-Cup thing where you buy the coffee grounds and then you put the coffee grounds in the reusable little K-Cup, make your cup of coffee, dump out the grounds, and then put it in the dishwasher. And that's great. I still use that to this day. But then in recent years, I've moved away from Starbucks and now I drink Bones Coffee Company because I kept seeing advertisements for it, and most importantly, the two biggest things that I was really drawn to is one, that this is free trade coffee, meaning that they do not use slave labor and that they make sure that the workers that are harvesting the coffee and roasting the coffee, just that whole process, are all paid proper living wages and have good working conditions. And then this little label right here, this was the tipping point for me. This is the Rainforest Alliance label, and you only get to put this on your coffee if you are also making sure that the coffee beans that are grown in a sustainable way that do not negatively impact the rainforest. So this means not engaging in clear cutting, not endangering the native species. It's basically grown in harmony with the rainforest. And that was huge for me because our rainforests are being destroyed at an alarming rate. So that's why I personally drink drink Bones Company coffee is because we need to make sustainable choices in order to protect natural habitats like our rainforests. I also love that Bones Coffee has all of these fun flavors like this one. I mean, first of all, it has a rainbow unicorn on it. You already have my attention. Like, rainbow unicorn, hello, it's what I'm all about here. And their packaging, the art is just so much fun, which also is part of what initially caught my attention. And they have such delicious flavors. One of my personal favorites is s'mores, closely followed up by cookies and dreams. And I also love that they have like limited edition flavors too. So I've been rocking the birthday cake flavor. Before that, I had the Valentine's Day red velvet cake flavor. And just that they have so many new flavors they are coming up with, you can always just find new fun flavors to try. So I really love having fun with all these different flavors, and the fact that it's the actual coffee itself is infused with the flavor, so I'm not adding a whole bunch of extra sugar and stuff to the coffee, that it's flavor that's already infused. And so when I brew it, all I do is just put in a little bit of milk and that's it. And that is just such a far cry from my teenage days of sugar and whipped cream and 8 million pumps of syrupy flavor sugar stuff. And I'm not exactly like a giant health nut or anything like that, but I'm 36 years old. I am going to be 37 at the beginning of April. Once you get to be my age, you have to really start considering like what you're putting in your body, and you can't just be like, I'm going to eat 800 gallons of sugar water every single day. It's just, don't do that. It's bad plan. So trying to make more responsible adult choices, but still having fun flavors, because come on, just because you're an adult doesn't mean you can't have fun flavors. And I also love that, there are a lot of coffee companies that claim to have like fun flavors and stuff. This one, the flavors, like you can actually straight up taste it from the get-go. Like, it's not like, oh, coffee with a hint of a little something something. No, this is like in your face. Oh, you said that you wanted fruity cereal flavor? Well, here you go. Front and center, fruity cereal flavored coffee. You can really, really taste it. Like, that's how these coffees work. And that's a big part of why I also really enjoy them, is that the flavors are really bold. Like, you can actually taste it without having to add a whole bunch of extra stuff to it. Now, beyond what brand of coffee it is and all that, coffee has always been an important part of my life, and also my life as a writer, in that I was effectively replacing sleep with coffee, which, don't do that. It is absolutely terrible and will destroy your health. Do not recommend. However, coffee has always been that catalyst that has kept me going when I have felt like I just can't. Whether I'm too tired or I'm too depressed, or I just do not have the motivation to sit down and do a thing. And I know that that's effectively a substance crutch. And I fully admit I am 100% a coffee addict. 100%. Every time I see a coffee commercial, I immediately am like, I want coffee so bad right now. Every time that I drive past a coffee shop, I'm like, oh my God, I want a coffee so bad right now. Throughout the day, I'll just have random parts of my day where I'll just suddenly be like, I really want a cup of coffee right now. And that was honestly like the hardest thing for me, y'all, was going from just drowning myself in coffee and not sleeping to I had to cut down to having only 1 cup of coffee a day. 1. I am allowed to technically have more than 1 if it's decaf. However, I try not to abuse that, because then that's just feeding into my problem and encouraging me to just go off the rails, which I just really, really don't need to do. But a big part of that is because my doctor told me, hey, if you keep drowning yourself in caffeine, you are going to have a heart attack and you are going to die. Like, full stop. Not if, not, oh, this could happen down the road. Like, no, you are staring death in the face. Make some choices. And so I did. And I had full caffeine withdrawal, y'all. And let me tell you, caffeine withdrawal is ugly. I was a horrendous bitch during caffeine withdrawal. It was so bad. Just so absolutely bad. And like, I also don't by any stretch of the imagination want to compare this to people that go through like hardcore substance abuse. Like that is a whole other level I can't even imagine. Don't ever want to imagine that level of suffering. But I can say on this very first rung of the ladder, it was rough, y'all. It was very rough. And basically I was like, listen, I have to keep my 1 cup of coffee because if I don't, I will fall off the wagon and I will go completely off the rails. If I can have my 1 cup, I know I can be good because then I can be like, I have my 1 cup a day, my 1 ration, and then I can satisfy myself. And then I can just, every time I'm like, I really want a cup of coffee, it's like, all right, we get to have our next cup of coffee tomorrow. We just got to wait till tomorrow and we can have another one and it'll be magical. And that's what I tell myself. And so far, and for the past 6 years, y'all, I have been good and adhered to my 1 cup of coffee per day rule. 1 cup of caffeine. That's it. So I'm very proud of myself on that I have kept that streak going. But even so, it is still that really good motivator for me that every day I can start my day with that cup of coffee and be like, all right, I've had my cup of magic. I'm ready to go. I can take on the world. And that's kind of the attitude that I imbue in that morning cup of coffee every day. It's this very special ritual for myself where I'm like, once I have my cup of coffee, I can do anything. And even to this day, I still have that feeling that as long as, I've got that cup in my hand, like I can do anything. And it goes even beyond me. Just about every writer that I know drinks coffee. I'm sure there are authors out there somewhere that don't drink coffee. Feel free to add in the comments if you are one of those writers or authors that for whatever reason doesn't drink coffee. Feel free to let me know what you like to drink instead. Would love to hear it. I know that tea is oftentimes the thing that if you don't drink coffee, you like to have tea. I also love tea. Just FYI. I do also love tea, but me and coffee, we got something special. But just about everybody I know who's a writer or an author drinks coffee. And on top of it, coffee has a special place in American culture and also specifically in writing culture. So coffee became popular originally in Europe, and it was seen as the working class drink. So the upper class very much was tea time, high tea, all of that with the whole tower with the sandwiches and the cute little cakes and the scones and the jams and the butter and the everything. And when coffee came over to Europe, it became very popular among the working class because one, it was seen as something that you just had by itself. You didn't need this whole ceremony with it. You didn't need all this other stuff to go with it. It didn't take all this other hoopla to do it. And there wasn't all of the frills and the fancy that went with it. You didn't need to have a proper, you have to boil it and then you have to transfer that into a nice teapot and then you transfer that into your nice teacup. And there's all this etiquette on how to drink tea too. Coffee was just pour it in my cup and let's get on with our day. And then that evolved. It became the drink of innovators and revolutionaries. So what that means is this is then when coffee houses started popping up. So it wasn't just random restaurants and places serving coffee. Then there were establishments where the entire thing was just going there just to get coffee and that was it. And so these became meeting places for people. And because it was seen as a working class beverage, it was working class people coming together and having coffee and conversations. Now, of course, the upper crust started getting in on this because who doesn't love having a fun time slumming it and all that? And then that's how this whole trend of the innovators and the revolutionaries drinking coffee, in that it was this idea of you sit down with a cup of coffee with other people who are not necessarily like-minded, but you have this connection in that you are here to pursue knowledge, to pursue art, to have a debate, to have a meaningful conversation. It's not just, oh, we're going to be very polite and only talk about the polite topics that are allowed during tea time. No, we're going to have very serious, in-depth conversations about the meaning of life, about new inventions, about the latest and greatest debates that are being talked about with scientists and writers and poets and revolutionaries. And out of this, it became the go-to drink for writers, because I don't know what it is about us, but if you leave us to our own devices, writers very much love working, usually in the middle of the night at the wee hours, drinking our coffee to stay awake, our pen flying across the page, and then we sleep till like noon. Traditionally, I don't know why, that stereotype really does hold true. Most writers I know, if you let their schedule be that, their schedule would 100% be that. If I didn't have to have a corporate job, my schedule would 100% be that. I would wake up at like somewhere between 10 a.m. and noon every day, and I would stay up until 1 or 2 o'clock at night. Easily, 100%. Would love to have that schedule, but unfortunately, our society is not built around allowing people to have that kind of schedule outside of if you are completely able to self-sustain. And unfortunately, I'm not at the level where I can self-sustain, so here I am waking up at oh my god o'clock and hating my life, which coffee helps to fix. Coffee makes the oh my god o'clock just a smidgen less horrible. And so from these coffee houses, you would have these writer groups forming where other writers would come together and discuss their writing together. And then that's how you had the evolution of writers' workshops coming together. That is the birthplace of how all of these writing conventions and writers' workshops and writers' groups and writers' forums all came from, was the humble coffee shop. So we as writers have a long and storied history with that magic bean juice. And I, for one, am never giving this stuff up, because it definitely is the magic wellspring of wisdom from which writing springs from. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.